What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Huge movement on the Alberta independence stage as well, as we discussed on Wednesday night's live stream, which, by the way, if you're not joining me on those live streams, jump in Wednesdays and Fridays here on the channel. We do lives with the YouTube community. It's amazing. We have the greatest YouTube community on the platform. I look forward to seeing you guys tonight, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, every Wednesday and Friday here on the channel. We talked about Alberta Prosperity Project going down to the United States. In fact, I knew about this last weekend while Jeff Rath, Dennis Modry, and Mitch Sylvester were down in the United States talking with the Trump administration. I even told you guys I had some juicy information and couldn't share it. And while I tried to get Jeff on the channel, he's very busy. I know he says the problem with these guys is they're all over the place. They got a lot of work to do, a lot of things to get done. And sometimes I'll reach out and say, Jeff, I need you to come on. And he'll say, sure. And then I'll message him and say, hey, when? And I don't hear back. And that's okay. He's busy. So I figured Wednesday night we would bring you guys the information anyways. So I want to talk about what happened down in the United States in regards to Alberta independence. You've seen in Canada that Mark Carney's already recognized Palestine as its own state. So I guess the guys over at APP figured, well, hey, what happens if Alberta votes in that it's its own territory, its own country, however you want to put it? They claim independence, and Canada doesn't want to accept that, or the government won't let us leave. A lot of people often say, hey, you can't go anywhere. You know, the land belongs to the Indigenous. No, it doesn't. Keith Wilson, super lawyer, has already shown you how that's not a true statement. Essentially what happens, for anybody who doesn't know, should Alberta hold its referendum in 2026, ask the question, should Alberta remain within the country of Canada? And I know, again, not verbatim, folks, but if people say, no, we want to go, what technically happens is that all provinces, the federal government, as well as Indigenous, must all come to the table in good faith to negotiate Alberta's exit. Should any of those parties not want to negotiate in good faith, well, here's where Alberta Prosperity Project, blazing the trails, heading down to the United States to talk with the Trump administration. This has gone viral, folks, this week. Stick with me, because I'm going to show you where it's hitting now, and many are talking about it. But you've got this article. Again, I'll fill you in on what happened, and then we're going to get into this. Jeff Rath, Mitch Sylvester, and Dennis Modry of the Alberta Prosperity Project were in Washington, D.C. on Monday to discuss Alberta independence with cabinet-level U.S. officials. This was the second round of talks with Alberta Prosperity Project that they've had with members of the Trump administration after a first meeting took place back in April, again, just after the federal election. We wanted to talk further about things that Albertans would be interested in knowing from a due diligence perspective with regard to independence, Rath, the APP's legal counsel, told the Western Standard. According to Jeffrey Rath, this week's meeting marked a significant step forward. We had a very productive meeting with a very senior level of the Trump administration. One of the people that was in our meeting, left to go directly into the Oval Office, he said, stating that the level of this meeting had an indication of the strong support from the United States for Alberta independence. He declined to disclose which officials attended, saying both parties had agreed to confidentiality. I can tell you, through my connections through the Alberta Prosperity Project, these were big names, like big... I can't say them, because if they're not going to quote them, I certainly can't say them. But for anybody who says that Alberta independence is a joke, or it's never going to go anywhere, or no one's taking it seriously, I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, if you knew who was in the room, if you knew who attended this meeting, you'd start kind of saying, oh, okay, maybe this is a little more serious than I thought. I'm telling you right now, with the support from the UCP voters, from the constant barraging of negativity and failure to operate within the country from Mark Carney, the numbers are growing every single day. Again, I'm interested to see what happens to Tommy the Commie's Forever Canada. I think that's what it's called. Wasted petition. that he put forward. Rumors speculating, folks, they haven't even garnered 100,000 signatures. In fact, last week, an article came out saying they've had to go to old age homes to ask people if they just want to sign a petition not to join the United States. So they're going out and pulling off the gloves to get dirty just to try and get some signatures. That tells you something about what's happening in this province. Rath said that the discussions touched on what Alberta would seek from the U.S. if independence was achieved. We're very interested in U.S. recognition of Alberta as an independent nation or state immediately upon the result of a successful referendum, he explained. Now, a lot of people, and you can see the lefties going online, Donald Trump's going to come out, he's going to recognize Alberta as an independent state, independent nation. I love Alberta, they're wonderful. There's a little Trump for you on Friday. No, what they're talking about recognizing us as a separate state from Canada, not the 51st state. The 51st state, and Jeff adds in here, I believe, that it's not going to happen. It wouldn't happen in 20 years. We're talking about Alberta becoming its own independent nation and having a strong support network within the United States. One thing I've always championed and said that we need. He added that free trade was central to the meeting, saying that principles of reciprocity. God, I am so sorry I butchered that word. I butchered it on live stream as well. It's my Lisdexia. I apologize. But in the context of a future Alberta-US trade agreement and the possibility of establishing a common market between the United States and Alberta, which again I think would be very beneficial. But Donald Trump has added would see zero tariffs on all goods and services on both sides of the border was openly discussed. So stick with me because I've got news about that. They were interested in the process and were at in terms of moving things forward. And where we were at, in terms of moving forward, Jeff Rath said on his American counterparts. As for whether Alberta could ever become the 51st state, Rath pushed back on the speculation. So here's where, a lot of people, those lefties online, I'm telling you, they're crazy. They got to go get a lollipop. They got to feel better. They come out asking about the beautiful 51st state. And while that would be nice, Jeff Rath even confirms everybody's always worried that somehow we're talking about Alberta becoming a state. That discussion came up and we all laughed, he said. It's extremely unlikely. Rath continued, pointing to the fact that Democrats would demand Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. also be admitted as states under the Union in exchange, emphasizing the difficult process of achieving statehood. We would need to have our own constitution, which would have to be approved by the Congress and the U.S. Senate, he said. There's no magic fairy wand. It's completely unrealistic, not likely to happen within the next 20 years. So for all the lefties out there going, oh, you just want to be a part of America, that's not what this is. You got to get off that horse. Support for independence has grown in recent months along the province's frustrations with Ottawa. Recent provincial poll indicates that the United Conservative Party has a 43% voter support in the province for that party, not for independence. Because this is where the numbers shift, folks. However, some critics are skeptical. Adrienne Davidson, assistant professor of political sciences at McMaster University, told the National Post that she hasn't, quote, seen anything compelling yet to suggest that the referendum question, were it to move forward, would get anywhere near the support that would be legally required to actually move it into the next stage of the process. However, Rath maintains that support is growing and says that 75% of UCP members are on board with independence. And we've shown that poll in other videos. It does exist. And here's where it's going to get interesting for Danielle Smith. Every week that goes by, Carney does something else to completely screw Alberta over, he said, citing the fact that Ottawa recently decided to maintain the emissions cap. Support for independence is growing, and the Americans see that too. From a standpoint of economic development, who the hell is going to invest in energy projects in Alberta when they could be shut in by the federal government because they're over the emissions cap? Premier Danielle Smith consistently downplayed independence during her recent series of Alberta Next panels across the province, repeatedly stating she wants, quote, a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Now, she has a mandate to do that. And again, I've said, and I know a lot of people were saying, where's the line? Where do we draw it? She gave 6 months. Those 6 months haven't been fulfilled. And that is true. But she just threw out the term 6 months. 6 months starting from when? Now, I'm not making excuses. Don't click off yet, folks. She did, however, commit to a date of November 16th. Now, I've said on many other videos, the problem Danielle Smith now faces, not by my judgment, but by Albertans' judgments, is if November 17th comes around and she says and does nothing or tries to toe the line or make more excuses, it's ultimately going to cost her her job. She knows that. We know that. So the winds of change are on their way out, folks, in the next couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see what happens by November 16th. Says here, she reiterated this on Tuesday, telling the National Post that my responsibility is to try to make sure that Alberta has a new and renewed relationship with Ottawa and is a part of what Alberta Next panel discussion is about. It is also important to identify the ways in which we may take on more responsibilities as we become stronger as an economy and have a stronger population. So Danielle's pushing for more of the Quebec way of things, whereas APP is pushing for straight up independence. I don't think Danielle's going to get what she's looking for. I really don't think it's going to happen. Again, when you compare it to a marriage, if the federal government was the husband and Alberta's the wife, Alberta's getting smacked around, cheated on, betrayed, lied to, beat like a redheaded stepchild, folks. The time has come to say, look, we've tried to save this marriage. We've gone to counseling. We've groveled. We've begged. We've pleaded. Nothing is going to come from this marriage. It's time for a divorce. Independence, folks, at this point, when you look at the behavior of the Mark Carney government, worse than Justin Trudeau, independence is the only way forward as far as I'm concerned. For anybody in any province. In fact, those in other provinces that are sick of the federal government should pack up and move to Alberta as quickly as possible. Find a way. It's the last bastion of freedom in this country. Rath, however, accused Danielle Smith of ignoring her base. Quote, my question for Danielle is, given how now over 75% of her members favor independence, how the hell does she hold on to her leadership when she's thwarting the wishes of 75% of her party members, he said. She's just governing as a dictator. I don't agree with that statement. And does not care that a supermajority of her party disagrees with her policy position of working for a united Canada. Now, as part of that 75%, I will tell you right now that, again, I'm going to give Danielle the benefit of the doubt. I'll give her until the 16th of November. She put that best before date on it. The milk goes bad, ladies and gentlemen, November 17th. So yes, if she ignores the wishes of this Albertan, I can tell you right now, I will be one of that 75% that say, okay, votes out the door. Who does it go to next? She has no choice but to act. Now, we talked about this going viral. I know this is a long video. I know we're taking our time getting into it, but it's reached the coast of the United States. It's breaking into the United States. Glenn Beck's even on board talking about it. The Trump admin is open to recognizing Alberta as an independent nation if it votes to secede from Canada in 2026. The lawyer leading the Alberta separatist referendum, Keith Wilson, tells me, quote, my understanding from the meetings that have occurred is that the Trump administration officials have indicated that the U.S. would recognize a vote by the people of Alberta to become independent. I think the Trump administration also recognizes you guys have the right above your border in Montana, the third largest reserve of oil and gas in the world. And this is what it's all about, folks. Resources. Trump wants these resources. Alberta wants out. America will not turn its back on Alberta if they vote to secede from Canada. Take a listen to the clip yourself. Super lawyer Keith Wilson hanging out on Glenn Beck. Take a look.
Then you have Alberta, where our Supreme Court of Canada has said that if a province and the people of a province hold a province-wide referendum, a vote, and the vote is to leave Canada and become their own nation, that they can do so. Canada is unique in the world in that we're the only democracy where the government, the Constitution, the courts have laid out a legal process for a region, a state, or a province to secede and become their own independent nation. And one of the critical steps in that process is international recognition. So my understanding from the meetings that have occurred that the Trump administration officials have indicated that the U.S. would recognize a vote by the people of Alberta to become independent. So that's very important to us. as we go into. We expect the vote to occur in 2026, sometime around this time next year, and I think the Trump administration also recognizes you guys have right above your border in Montana the third largest reserve of oil and gas in the world. Look at the power of that, the energy independence. It takes you from an energy superpower to a mega superpower. So, and then we're completely culturally aligned. So I think there's a recognition, and Canada's. The leftists in Ottawa are being global disruptors. They're not helping. They're helping build these governments with this anti-freedom, anti-Christian phenomena that we're seeing. It's hard to believe it's happening, but it is. So, it's an encouraging fact that these discussions are occurring.
Now, I know people are going to say, look, Glenn couldn't get a word in there, and that's okay, because the entire episode is on his most recent podcast, Best of the Program, over on Spotify, the Glenn Beck program. Go check it out, folks. I can't put a link in the description because YouTube now poo-poos over links being in the descriptions. Make sure to go and check it out. You can always go to Keith Wilson over on Twitter, on X. He's got the link on there, or again, Glenn Beck's program. Over on Spotify or anywhere that the Glenn Beck program is streamed. And you can check out his latest episode from October 2nd, where he talks about Alberta and its independence in full form. Now, it is recognized that, again, Keith Wilson does make a statement in here that Christianity and freedom are under attack in Canada. There's this open movement to slam anybody who, for some reason, isn't Islam, I guess, or that doesn't support Sharia law or any of the other crazy religions that are being rushed into this country. I never thought I'd see a day where a country that was founded on Christian principles is being shuttered out by radicals that the government is seeping into the country. Now, there is a silver lining to this. A lot of people are saying, well, hey, I heard Mark Carney is going to talk to President Trump next week. Is he going to be talking about Alberta and Alberta independence? Is Trump going to be like, listen, Mark, I just want Alberta. Just hand it over. Hand that over. Sign it over. Come on. Give me that contract. I want that oil and gas. It's not going to happen. It's not for Alberta. It's all just smoke and mirrors from Mark Carney. He's trying to make it appear as though he's going to Washington to discuss the tariffs. He's not going to get anywhere. We know this. It's already happened. There's no movement on tariffs with Mark Carney and Donald Trump. He's going to slap him around and say, Mark, get out of my office. You're fired. You're fired. Get out of here. Go home. Get him out. Go have a lollipop. Here's straight from the horse's mouth. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney will meet U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House on October 7th to address U.S. tariffs on Canadian exports, including steel, aluminum, autos, lumber, canola, and energy. These tariffs imposed following Trump's 2024 re-election affect 15% of Canada's $600 billion annual exports from to the United States and have led to job losses in manufacturing, agriculture, as well as corporate relocations from provinces like Alberta and Ontario. So, if you've been following the news this week, in Alberta, Imperial Oil lost 700 jobs. You see multiple automotive companies now moving their plants and their workers down to the United States. It's better to operate there. It's better to make in America. Mark Carney isn't going there to discuss tariffs. He's going there to bend over while Donald, crams it up his tailpipe. Nothing will improve for Canada, folks. This is why I say independence is the only way forward. Mark Carney will walk right in there and Trump will say, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't care. I don't care, Mark Carney. Grab your jet. Grab your maple syrup. Grab whatever you want. Get on your jet. Get out of here. You're fired. I love throwing the Trump out for you guys on a Friday. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If Alberta independence is stretching this far that Americans are deeply invested in it and talking about it, that they're propping it out saying, yeah, something's got to change. Something's got to give. If America is prepared to recognize Alberta as an independent state, not a 51st state, independent state, what do you think this means for Alberta gaining steam on the old independence wagon? Let me know your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video's earned your subscription. Boy, I sure hope it does, because we've been jumping. Got almost 1,000 subs a day at this point now. You guys are incredible. Hit that subscribe button, hit a thumbs up and a comment down below. Join me and Mrs. Fringe live tonight. 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. We'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about a lot of different things here in terms of politics from this week on the live stream as we chat with the greatest YouTube community on the platform, full stop. I look forward to chatting with you guys each and every week. It is my last bastion of sanity, and I look forward to chatting with you tonight on that end every Wednesday and Friday night starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.